Hello, and welcome to this edition of Fulton Justice. I'm your host, Yolanda Lewis, District Court Administrator for the Atlanta Judicial Circuit. Today's show is a three-part series on investing in alternatives to incarceration in Fulton County. Statistics show that there is an 85% recidivism rate for inmates admitted to the Fulton County Jail, and the jail essentially functions as one of the largest mental health institutions in the state of Georgia. Recently, Governor Nathan Deal signed a set of public safety reforms into law that would focus on communities and cut corrections costs. This bill helps to reduce Georgia's prison population and prisoner return rates. Initiatives stemming from the bill focus on jail space for high-risk offenders and strengthening alternative programs. Prior to the bill's passage, Georgia prison population was projected to rise by 8% over the next 5 years at a cost of $264 million for taxpayers. Here in Fulton County, the Board of Commissioners have taken a similar local approach to justice reform by passing a resolution which creates a series of alternative programs in the county to address jail overcrowding and the underlying issues of drug addiction and mental health. This move by the Board of Commissioners and a host of significant developments in the justice system in Fulton County highlights the need to do much more than simply lock people up. Up next, we'll talk to the Fulton County Manager, Zachary Williams. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Fulton Justice. Joining me now is Fulton County Manager Zachary Williams, and he's joined by Ericka Marshall-Story, who's the manager of the Fulton County Second Chance Grant Program. Thank you both for being here today.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Mr. Williams, you're the county manager for a large urban jurisdiction, which means that we have a large jail, we have a large population of individuals who commit crime. Why are alternative sentencing strategies so important here in Fulton County?
Sure. And Yolanda, I think you really hit the nail on the head when you talk about a large urban county and our sizable jail and continuing increase in the jail population. So what we realize here in Fulton County is the old mentality of simply locking people up or lock them up and throw away the key is not only outdated, it's ineffective. So what has been determined to be tough on crime, I think in Fulton County we're replacing that with being smart on crime, recognizing the need to give people skills where appropriate. Of course, there's always the punitive element, but in many instances people need life skills, or they need mental health assistance, or they need job skills, or they need a job. So what we're looking to do in Fulton County is put systems in place that allow those persons who are interested in bettering themselves and creating a better life, we want to help them with that.
And so one of the things that was a pivotal moment for Fulton County is the recent position of the Board of Commissioners when they passed strategies and passed a resolution to allow us to really develop some new alternative strategies. So tell us a little bit about what those strategies are and why the shift.
Sure. The board recognizes that in order to get different results, we need some different strategies or different methods. So for the past several years, actually, in one way or the other, Fulton County has been involved in alternative sentencing, whether it's DUI courts, drug courts, those types of programs. And in the most recent past, of course, the Second Chance Grant Program that Ericka manages. And in the past several months, the board has authorized or really directed us to implement day reporting programs, increase our pretrial programs, add more money to a community court program. And in each of these instances, the board is saying we need to do things that allow people to get life skills, to get job skills, to be assimilated into the community, because the reality is sooner or later those who are incarcerated will be out. And the board is committed to ensuring that once people are out and on their own, they're able to be productive members of society. So the tools necessary to assist them with that are being put in place in a holistic manner.
We talk about in courts that there's a philosophical shift of how we do business from punitive to more treatment-based types of programs. Why do you think, and recently we know the governor has openly supported, verbally and financially supported the change. Why do you think people are shifting from the lock 'em up mentality that cost a lot to where we are today and the strategies that we're putting in place today?
Well, I think in large part the issue is financial. It's financial because the cost to continually incarcerate increases every year. The cost of food, the cost of paying for correctional officers, insuring the facilities. And then you have the lost productivity of each of these individuals who are leaving jails and prisons nationally, not just in Fulton County, leaving these institutions without skills to survive, to become productive members of society. So they're falling back into old patterns, old behaviors, and they're staying essentially on the tax dole. Taxpayers are continuing to pay for them. So I think there's been a realization nationally that something different needs to be done. And in Fulton County, we've been at the forefront of providing alternative sentencing so that persons have a fighting chance when they finally get out.
Now, we all remember the headlines for weeks and weeks and weeks about building a new jail, that Fulton County needs a new jail. Where are we now on that, or has there been some change in direction due to alternative sentencing programs here in Fulton County?
Well, the reality is, as we sit here today, there's approximately 23 to 2,400 persons in our entire system. When the conversation of building a new jail was really at the forefront, the number was closer to probably 3,000 people in the entire system, and it's been higher than that. So there has been tremendous success, not only with the alternative sentencing, but the justice partners have worked very well together to process caseloads, to get people where they need to be. And in some instances it means processing them through, and in many instances people end up in prison. But in many other instances they end up in other programs that don't involve them being incarcerated. So, you know, the building a new jail, I would say that's on hold right now, and that's consistent with the board's philosophy of trying to find other ways besides warehousing people, if at all possible.
Now, Ms. Story, we talk about alternatives to incarceration. You actually run one of these programs, the Second Chance program. Tell us a little bit about what the Second Chance program is.
Thank you, Yolanda. It's actually a federally funded program, and it's a demonstration project specifically to see if we put in place all of the measures that the county manager just mentioned. How do we address substance abuse issues? How do we address any behavioral health or mental health issues, while at the same time providing vocational skills, at the same time providing employment and housing. If we put all of this in the forefront of the lives of our incarcerated individuals, and then provide that programming, most importantly, while they're in jail. So they're still a captive audience, even if they're a willing audience. We're able to put these tools in place in their lives and then provide wraparound services once they actually leave. The evidence-based practices all show that this is really the only way to help ensure, and it's not 100%, but it does ensure that a fewer amount of people will reincarcerate and will, more importantly, change the way that they think about their criminal activity and how they make their choices.
And when you talk about recidivism rates, this Second Chance programs are, of course, in different areas across the United States.
That's
what
correct.
is the recidivism rate for these programs once they are actually in force?
Well, that's actually what's being measured right now. We've been tasked with a 50% reduction in recidivism over a 5-year period of time. The Second Chance grants actually came into place 2 years ago. So I think that we will better be able to answer that question in 5 years, but that's our goal in Fulton County. We are striving for a 50% reduction, which would be a 10% reduction over a 5-year period of time.
And how many individuals are you expecting to go through this program?
Right now we have 40 individuals who are expected to go through our first year, and we've also been refunded for a second year, and so that will be 80 in total.
Okay. Mr. County Manager, just a follow-up question. This is a real big investment that the Board of Commissioners decided to do. What is your expectation as far as outcomes with this investment?
Sure. My expectation are more productive members of society, more opportunity for jobs, less re-incarceration, and a system that actually thinks broader than the traditional lock 'em up. You know, a system that integrates justice programs and corrections programs with health and human services programs, with drug and alcohol addiction programs. And we recognize in Fulton County, it's by providing a comprehensive and wraparound service to the individual and their family, increases the likelihood of success and long-term productive members of society.
Wonderful. Thank you both for all that you do, and thank you for being here today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
After a quick break, we'll speak to a presiding judge over our accountability courts and a successful graduate from our drug court program. So please stay tuned. Welcome back to Fulton Justice. Joining me now is Fulton County Superior Court Judge, Judge Doris L. Downs, who presides over the accountability courts for Superior Court, and Mr. Alan Simmons, a successful graduate of the drug court program in 2005. Welcome both of you to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Now, Judge Downs, a lot of people have heard about accountability courts because the governor has recently made it known. Tell us a little bit about how long you've been over accountability courts and the mission of the programs.
I have been personally over the accountability courts in Fulton County since 2002. And so this is my 10th year.
Yeah.
And it's been a great joy. The mission of the program is to take individuals that are committing crimes and that are addicted to drugs and have mental health diseases and to treat the problem and turn them into productive citizens.
A lot of people think of courts as being punitive, and I think a lot of people think courts just simply lock people up. Why have you been such a champion for treatment versus incarceration?
Well, my whole career has been committed to reducing crime in the community. And I believe evidence-based sentencing is part of that, creating a sentence that actually reduces crime. And what has been proven to be the case is that the community is made safer, it is cheaper, and it puts people back with their families, back with their parents, back with their communities, productive citizens paying taxes. So it's a win-win-win all the way around.
And you talked about the people who come into the program. What makes a person eligible for mental health court or for drug court?
Well, you have to have a real addiction to drugs for drug court, and many of the mentally ill that come into our court also have that. You have to have criminal thinking. In other words, a proven track record that you are thinking criminally at getting your drugs and supporting your habit. And then finally, you have to be amenable to treatment, somebody who treatment is actually going to be successful with. And so those are the assessments that we make early.
And when you say amenable to treatment, the person has to want treatment. Do you ever encounter people who actually come into the program who absolutely do not want treatment?
Oh yes, we definitely put people into treatment that don't want it. And within the pre-treatment phase or the first phase, they are turned around.
Right. So this, you've been doing this since 2002. The recidivism rate for the jail is at 85%. We know that the recidivism rate for drug court is about 34% and 3% for mental health court. What makes these programs work so well?
The programs work because instead of teaching a person more antisocial behavior by incarceration and enforcing all of the bad behavior that they have grown up with, we are turning it 100% on its head and producing people like Mr. Simmons here who are tremendous assets to their community and their families.
And one more question before we get to Mr. Simmons, who has a wonderful story to tell us today. Why is it so important that these programs are funded in Georgia and particularly here in Fulton County?
Well, we're funding criminal institutions, prisons, jails, they are taking the big money from the state of Georgia and from the county of Fulton. And it is much cheaper to treat, to support, to put people back into the community in a positive way. And it reduces crime. That's the bottom line.
Right. And the important thing to note is that Fulton County, we have more inmates in the prison system than any other county in the state of Georgia.
Absolutely.
Mr. Simmons, thank you so much for being here. You were a successful graduate. You had a history of drug addiction, 20 years, addicted to crack cocaine. And you also had been in and out of jail a lot of times. Can you tell us a little bit about your story and where you are today?
Well, I started off a productive member of society, and I drank and smoked, as a lot of people do, and it really didn't have complete control of my life at first. But as it progressed, it began to take over my life. And the more I did, the more I wanted to do. The more I did, the more it took for me to get high. And then it just took complete control of my life and it just spiraled out of control to where I didn't care about nothing else but getting high again.
So how many years were you on drugs, and did you have a family? Tell us about your family life at that time.
Well, I started just like a lot of people do, just drinking, and occasionally smoking at around the age 16. I went to school for heating and air, and I got married, I had children, and everything was seemed to be going fine until my addiction progressed. Once it progressed, I lost a real good job.
You used to work for the city of
I
Atlanta.
used to work for the city of Atlanta. I had a good job. They gave me a chance for in treatment. It just didn't work. I went back out, and then I just kind of walked away from my family totally because the addiction had taken control of my life. And once it took control of my life, I lost my family, I lost my house, I lost my cars, and most of all, I lost me.
So tell us a little bit about where you are today, because since the time that you've graduated, you've made so many important strides in your life. So can you tell us about where you are today versus where you were then?
Well, today I have found not only myself, I found God. I was able to get my family back. I was able to start a business of my own. I've become a productive part of society. I'm a deacon at my church, and I care about myself. And it's hard to care about anybody else unless you care about yourself.
That's true. So you have not had any other problems. You have not been arrested since you've graduated. You haven't. You've been a productive member of society. You are completely back to normal. You've gotten your life back.
I've got my life back, and I've gotten control of my life. I know what I want to do. I can set goals. My children look up to me again, and that was one of the worst things. My children really looked down on me, but now they look up to me, and that is one of the biggest things.
Now, one last thing I wanted to ask you: why do you feel it's so important for Judge Downs and the court to have programs like this versus simply putting people into jail or incarcerating them?
Well, what happens is, and I've seen it a lot of times, is I was in jail, and what a lot of people in jail do is they plan ways to come back to jail. It's one thing to punish me for what I do, but how about giving me an alternative to what I do? I was at a state of hopelessness, and when you're at a state of hopelessness, then you just keep on doing what you're doing because you don't think there's anything else to do. My addiction had complete control over my life. But once I surrendered to the program, I allowed God to take control of my life. And once I allowed that, I allowed help to help me.
Judge Downs, I know that, recently the governor has signed an executive order to make sure that these types of courts are funded and they're evidence-based. Tell me what you think is important to the future of drug courts, not only drug and mental health courts, not only in Fulton County, but in Georgia.
Well, I hope that the future leads to evidence-based sentencing, that we look at what works to reduce crime in the community, what works to reduce costs of the system, what works to put people back together instead of building antisocial behavior and then releasing them out on the people with $25 and then a bus ticket home. So I am for things that work. I am for spending the least amount on the biggest improvement. And this is what I think drug courts and mental health courts hold in the future for our community.
They're certainly important programs. Judge Downs, I'd like to just publicly thank you for all the work that you've done since 2002. We appreciate you being here. Mrs. Simmons, best of luck in the future. Thank you for being a shining example. Stay tuned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Courts and justice communities around the country have experienced a philosophical shift in how they approach sentencing for individuals who are seemingly good candidates for rehabilitation. Instead of incarceration as the only option, courts have sought to adopt more balanced and affordable approaches to implementing alternative programs. They enforce the law, but they hold offenders accountable. Alternative sentencing programs are a far cry from just a slap on the wrist or a get-out-of-jail-free card. To the contrary, these programs are extremely intense, providing defendants with the tools needed to reassert responsibility over their lives. These programs change lives, they change families, and they change communities. For more information on the Fulton County Accountability Court, visit our website at www.fultoncourt.org or call our office at 404-612-4518. Thank you again for joining us for Fulton Justice. I'll see you next time.